Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger say that they are withdrawing from the International Criminal Court. The three West African countries accuse the ICC of being a, quote, instrument of neo-colonialist repression, saying that it only targets less privileged countries. They said they will no longer recognize its authority. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are all led by military governments, and those three governments have said that they will set up what they called indigenous mechanisms in its place.
Brothers and sisters of Africa, welcome once again to Voice of Africa, the platform where the pulse of our continent beats loud and clear. Today we bring you a major story shaking the international legal stage and stirring passionate debate across the globe. Three West African nations, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, have officially announced their withdrawal from the International Criminal Court, better known as the ICC. Their decision is not just a technical withdrawal from a treaty, but a bold political statement that calls into question the very foundations of global justice as it has been practiced over the last 2 decades. Before we go deeper, kindly take a moment to like this video so that YouTube recommends it to more people. Your support ensures that Africa's voice is heard and that our stories are not buried beneath the noise of global headlines. The announcement was made through a joint statement delivered in strong and uncompromising language. The three Sahel nations described the ICC as an instrument of neo-colonial repression in the hands of imperialism. They argued that the court disproportionately targets leaders and individuals from weaker, less privileged nations, while powerful states remain untouched. This is not the first time the ICC has been accused of double standards, but the departure of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger adds a new dimension to the critique, because these are countries that have been under intense international spotlight since their recent military takeovers. The International Criminal Court was established in 2002 under the Rome Statute, with the promise of serving as a neutral arbiter of justice for crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crimes of aggression. In theory, it was supposed to be the great equalizer, a global body capable of holding anyone accountable, regardless of rank, wealth, or political power. In practice, however, most of its prosecutions have focused on African leaders and African conflicts. The frustration is not new. Leaders from across Africa have long accused the ICC of practicing selective justice. Former South African President Jacob Zuma once hinted at leaving the court. Kenya's leadership criticized it after charges were brought against its president and deputy president. Even Uganda, which initially supported ICC processes, later expressed disappointment at its perceived bias. For many African citizens, the question has always been, why are war crimes in Africa pursued so aggressively, while those committed elsewhere often pass without even an investigation? The governments of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger went further in their statement. They did not only criticize the court's selectivity, they declared that they would no longer recognize its authority. Instead, they promised to establish what they call indigenous mechanisms, legal systems rooted in local sovereignty, to handle cases of war crimes and human rights violations. This, they argue, is part of a broader struggle to reclaim African self-determination in every sector: security, economics, culture, and now justice. This move also comes against the backdrop of increasing skepticism in Africa about international institutions. Many citizens feel these institutions were designed to enforce the will of the powerful rather than deliver justice for all. When the ICC fails to prosecute crimes committed in wars involving major powers, while aggressively pursuing African leaders who have already lost political clout, it deepens the suspicion of selective enforcement. Observers note that the Sahelian withdrawal could have ripple effects. Other nations in Africa may begin to question the value of their ICC membership. If the perception grows that the court is an arena where only the weak are held accountable, its legitimacy will continue to decline. The irony is that African states were among the strongest supporters of the ICC at its creation, hoping it would serve as a tool to check the power of the global elite. That dream, many now say, has failed. The timing of this decision is also politically charged. Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger have all experienced military coups between 2020 and 2023. These juntas, led by Assimi Goïta in Mali, Ibrahim Traoré in Burkina Faso, and Abdourahmane Tiani in Niger, have reoriented their foreign policies away from traditional Western allies and toward new partnerships, particularly with Russia. Critics in Europe argue that the withdrawal from the ICC is partly motivated by these alliances. After all, Russia itself faces an active ICC arrest warrant against President Vladimir Putin for alleged war crimes in Ukraine. Standing against the ICC, therefore, could be seen as a gesture of solidarity with Moscow. But beyond geopolitics, the move speaks to a deeper frustration with a global system where justice seems negotiable. For decades, African leaders and intellectuals have complained about a world order that demands accountability from weaker states while excusing the misdeeds of stronger ones. The ICC, instead of transcending this imbalance, has come to symbolize it. The joint statement from the Sahel countries also included an implicit reference to Israel, noting that the ICC has been slow or unwilling to act on obvious crimes of war and genocide. Although Israel was not mentioned by name, the context was clear, especially given recent conflicts in Gaza. For the Sahelian governments, this was another example of how international justice seems selective and politicized. Experts remain divided on the implications of this withdrawal. Some argue that stepping away from the ICC is dangerous because it removes an important layer of accountability. Without an international tribunal, ordinary citizens in these countries may find it harder to seek justice if their own governments commit abuses. Others argue that the move is symbolic but hollow, since creating new domestic tribunals with true independence will take years of resources and commitment. Yet for many ordinary Africans, the symbolism matters. These withdrawals echo a rising tide of Pan-African sovereignty movements sweeping the continent. From economic reforms to regional security alliances, the message is consistent. Africa must control its own destiny without being dictated to by external powers. In this sense, the withdrawal from the ICC is not just a legal maneuver, it is part of a larger political reawakening. Maxine Rubin, a research fellow at the German Institute of Global and Area Studies, explained in a recent interview that the claim of neo-colonial bias, while widely shared, may not be the only explanation. She noted that Mali itself once referred cases to the ICC, demonstrating a willingness to cooperate with the court in the past. The sudden break, therefore, may reflect new political calculations rather than just old frustrations. Rubin suggested that geopolitical alignment with Russia could be one of the underlying motives.
Maxine Rubin is a postdoctoral research fellow at the German Institute of Global and Area Studies. You've studied the ICC's relations with various African nations. You're joining us from Hamburg. It's great to have you on the program. What do you make of this claim by Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso that the ICC is, quote, an instrument of neo-colonial repression, that it only punishes developing countries?
Hi, Cyril, and thank you so much for having me on your show. I would hesitate to adopt that language that has been put forward by these three countries. It's a popular critique from after al-Bashir's arrest warrant was issued. But in this instance, I'm not sure it really holds water. It seems to be a thin veil for other motivations behind the withdrawal. In fact, Mali self-referred its own case to the ICC for investigation, which suggests that there's something more to the story than what they're presenting.
Still, whether motivated by politics, ideology, or principle, the withdrawal forces the world to confront difficult questions. Who gets to define justice? Can an international court truly claim impartiality if the most powerful states are not bound by its authority? And should African nations continue to submit to an institution they increasingly see as undermining their sovereignty? For the citizens of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, the practical effects of this move are yet to be seen. Will domestic tribunals actually emerge? And if so, will they provide real justice for victims of war crimes and human rights abuses? Or will they serve primarily as shields to protect the ruling governments from external scrutiny? These are the questions that will determine whether this bold decision strengthens sovereignty or simply creates new vulnerabilities. What is clear, however, is that Africa is at a turning point. The continent's younger generations are watching closely, demanding systems that are fair, transparent, and truly representative of their values. They are tired of being told what justice should look like by powers that themselves escape accountability. Whether or not one agrees with the withdrawal from the ICC, it reflects a growing determination across Africa to reclaim ownership over its destiny. Brothers and sisters, this story is not only about 3 Sahelian states. It is about the future of Africa in a world where justice is often political, where sovereignty is contested, and where the struggle for equality on the global stage is far from over. As the dust settles on this dramatic announcement, one thing is certain. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have once again placed Africa at the center of the global conversation about justice, power, and freedom. And so we leave you with this thought: can justice that is not equal ever be true justice? That is our story today on Voice of Africa. If you found this breakdown valuable, kindly like this video so that YouTube recommends it to more viewers. Share it with friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an update as we continue to amplify Africa's voice to the world.